Glory to you, Lord.
Now when Jesus had heard that John had been arrested, he withdrew to Galilee. He left Nazareth and made his home in Capernaum by the sea, in the territory of Zebulun and Naphtali, so that what had been spoken through the prophet Isaiah might be fulfilled. Land of Zebulun, land of Naphtali, on the road by the sea, across the Jordan, Galilee of the Gentiles. The people who sat in darkness have seen a great light, and for those who sat in the region in shadow of death, light has dawned. From that time, Jesus began to proclaim, "Repent, for the kingdom of heaven has come near." As he walked by the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon, who is called Peter, and Andrew his brother, casting a net by the sea, for they were fishermen. And he said to them, "Follow me, and I will make you fish for people." Immediately they left their nets and followed him. As he went from there, he saw two other brothers, James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John, in the boat with their father Zebedee, mending their nets, and he called them. Immediately they left their boat and their father and followed him. Jesus went throughout Galilee, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the good news of the kingdom and curing every disease and every sickness among the people. The gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
One of the things that shows up a lot in my news feed on Facebook is church and pastor-related things, which is sort of fun because I get to see these glimpses of what other churches are doing and what other pastors are doing. And, like, so if I'm looking for an idea, I usually peruse their pages. But part of the downfall, also, I'm just putting it out there, is kind of downfall of social media, is it can make you feel like you're not doing enough, or you're not good enough, because everybody's life looks so perfect out there, right? So I'm just saying that in case you've ever felt that way. I'm confident that that's not actually the case. But anyway, not long ago, I was on Facebook at the very beginning of the season of Epiphany, and a church in Virginia had just posted a picture of their steeple. And what they had done is they had installed lighting around the base of their steeple, so it shone up the sides towards the cross and lit up the whole night. In the midst of all that darkness, there stood this steeple. And so they posted this picture on Facebook, and underneath the caption was, "Just one of the little things we're doing to light up the world." And so when I read the phrase in Isaiah and in Matthew this week, that the people who sat in darkness have seen a great light, I couldn't help but think of that steeple. Standing there is a strong, powerful, stable light, a beacon of hope. Now I need to also admit to you, since some of you don't know me very well, I am a big, giant sap, like the Cry at Hallmark movies kind of sap. And I am also a bit of an idealist. And when I was thinking about how I'm an idealist, I'm totally going to date myself here, but I was thinking about this, and that whole, We Are the World song that came out in the 80s, I'm all about it, because it's changed the world and makes me cry all at the same time. The whole light of the world thing, I'm so all about it. I even have it tattooed on my back. Really. Before you think I'm kidding. So, before you think that this is that kind of sermon, well, next week I'm going to say, bring a friend to church Sunday, or I'm going to just tell you to go out and be all kind and loving and Jesus-y to people. Before you think it's that kind of sermon, I need to tell you what you're up against and what it's going to do to you. See, this is one of the things that I simultaneously love about Jesus and I hate about him. He tells it like it is. Go fish. Go be light. Go change the world. There's not a whole lot of ambiguity in the statements. And we, at least I know I do, in my fear, I want to soften what he says. I want it to be a little bit more sappy or idealistic or feel good. And there was this moment, I'm going to explain to you this moment when I realized that light was not about feeling good. And I can't remember all the details of this radio broadcast, but I was driving my car and listening to NPR, and they were interviewing this man from another country, and I think it was Africa. And they're interviewing him and asking him questions and had someone translating for him. And he was talking about all the things that his community was facing, the warfare and the poverty and all the carnage. And he said, and this is why I remember, this is what he said, "I tell my children that to be a candle, you must be willing to melt away." And I wrote it down because it stuck with me that much. He tells his children that they must be willing to melt away. I don't tell my children that. I protect them, and I shield them, and I safeguard them. I want them to walk in the light, but do I really want them to be the light? Not if they have to melt, or burn, or hurt. His explanation of light was so blatantly honest. And the truth is, he didn't say anything that I don't already know. I know that in order for a candle to give light, it has to give of itself. I had just never thought of it in the whole totality of it. The thing that I like about the light of the world is its glow, not the melting, nor the burning down. Now, I need to tell you that as you get to know me better, there are a lot of things that make me crazy about Jesus, but one thing that I always laugh to myself when I'm reading the Bible is how he mixes up his metaphors so much. I like to write, and it's a really bad literary technique to mix your metaphors as you're going along. And so in today's readings, he talks about being light, and he talks about being fishermen, and he also has an agricultural reference in Isaiah. And I just want to say, pick one thing. Go with one thing. I got enough here. But as I thought about it, the fishermen and the light are called to do the same thing. Cast. Into the deep, dark world, cast. Maybe the light of the steeple does not need to point towards heaven. Maybe the light of the steeple needs to point towards hell. See, I have this idea that once light comes, then the darkness will go away. And that's a bit idealistic and sappy, because on my part, it's a bit idealistic on my part, because the fact of the matter is the light has come, and the light is coming, and the light promises always to come. And despite all that, darkness still exists. So what am I supposed to do with that? Maybe the light of the world does not dispel darkness. Maybe the light of the world dispels the fear of the power of darkness. Maybe the light of the world makes it possible for us to walk into the darkness because Jesus has already promised to light our way. Maybe the light of the world casts just enough light for us to see. But that doesn't feel very strong, or stately, or very safe. Certainly not very steeple-like. But I think that if Jesus was walking with us today in bodily form, I think that Jesus would say to us, burn the church. Light it on fire. And I know I said to Pastor Steve earlier, I'm pretty sure that I'm about to give him a heart attack because I'm fully aware that we have a building campaign going on.
And burning things down could actually solve some problems.
And I'm aware that we have an annual meeting. I'm also acutely aware that you've just hired another pastor. So burn down the church. It would give off a lot of light, right? Obviously, I'm talking a little bit figuratively, a little play on words. But Jesus needs people and places that are willing to burn. Burn for the good of the world, for the sake of the people, and for the love of God. That type of church, those kinds of disciples, they're burning and they're melting, and their light will illuminate the world. See, this is going to sound a little harsh and not very warm and fuzzy. But when Jesus says, go fish, or go be light, The response he's not looking for is, well, once my kids are grown, or once the finances are in shape, or once things are a bit more stable. No, the response that Jesus is looking for is, we're ready. Cast us out into the darkness and let us be light. And that can be scary. Because what if we fail? And why mess with a good thing? And you're probably like, what the heck is she talking about? What are we doing? But first, I feel like I need to say this. Yes, things here are going well, and we are already doing good work, and we already cast a fair amount of light. But the truth is this, there are still people and places for whom things are not going well, where goodness doesn't seem to reside, and where despair is more prevalent than hope. And we're it. We're the light. And to do so, we may have to burn up some notions about how we've always done church, so that we can cast light differently. So I'm a practical person. I like a to-do list. So I'm going to be practical for a few minutes to say what I'm trying to actually talk about, but I think it's only fair to say that none of us actually know what that looks like yet. But I feel like we're in decent company because the disciples didn't know what that looked like yet either. But they were willing to change what they were casting. They traded their nets in for the love of people. And God cast them to the world as light. And so we know that the same thing that happened to the disciples is also what's happening to us. God's asking us to trade our nets in, to burn our preconceived notions, so that he can cast us out there to do new things for the love of his people. And that's not only a high and holy calling. It's a blood, sweat, and tears calling. I'm going to be working to make some connections outside of this church, and they may push your envelope a little bit. And I'm going to be inviting you to come along and to meet different people. Because to be an illuminated church, we need to know what burns the people up, what makes them weary, and what their struggles are, and what their needs are. And we also need to know what their passions are. What do people love out here, and what do they want from a church? And we need them to tell us, which is different than us telling the people what we think they need. Them telling us what's needed in the community, needed in a church, is a much more Jesus approach. Jesus listened to the needs of the people, and then he responded. And he gave all that he had, and risked everything, and went to the very ends of the earth for it, for the sake of being light. It seems that in the end, the lit-up steeple tells a story that is not true. There is very little about being light that is strong or stable or even stands still. But it is everything. The story of light is everything.